like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand.
Hello everyone, just a quick update before we get started regarding the fundraiser video I did previously. First of all, I still don't feel good that I felt the need to do that, but it worked immensely. My bills and new glasses and all that kind of stuff are paid for the very near future, and if you follow my community tab, you'll be able to see the results of where that money is going, because I'll be posting any and all receipts there so that you know the money hasn't been wasted. I just wanted to give an enormous thank you to all of my subscribers, all of my fans. I have no words. Thank you seems hollow in comparison, because I asked for help and I received it tenfold, and it was kind of overwhelming, but I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. And I will do my best not to disappoint you. I will make this channel the best that it's ever been, and I will do right by you by giving you back the content that you all deserve. And with that, let's get on with today's video. One of the many things that I believe boggles the mind about space travel is satellites. There are right now approximately 1,100 satellites orbiting the Earth, and the many ways in which they do so are somewhat mysterious to most. What keeps them from crashing into one another? What's the purpose of the many different altitudes and inclinations? What happens to a satellite when it stops functioning? I'd like to answer a few of these questions today. It's first important to keep in mind that a satellite's height determines its speed, due to the weak force of gravity acting on it the higher it goes. A lower orbiting satellite is being pulled around the Earth more quickly, and a higher one is pulled more slowly. This is where a paradox is introduced. If a satellite operator wants to increase the satellite's speed, they can't simply fire the thrusters in the direction of the orbit to accelerate it. Doing so would boost the orbit, thereby causing the satellite's speed to decrease with the added altitude. Instead, firing the thrusters in the opposite direction will pull the satellite down into a lower orbit, and the increased pull of gravity will therefore increase its speed. This is how we end up with the different orbits for many Earth satellites. A high enough orbit will slow a satellite down to a point where its speed matches the Earth's rotation, making it remain over the same spot at all times. Located at 35,786 kilometers, this is where we will find most weather satellites, called geosynchronous or geostationary orbit, depending on its inclination. A similar, slightly lower orbit, called semi-synchronous orbit, is used for GPS satellites, allowing a satellite to pass over the same two spots every day, making it highly consistent and predictable. Inclination and eccentricity are another two things that greatly affect the way an orbit behaves. Many orbits have an eccentricity of 0, making them perfect circles. This is also true of the International Space Station, which maintains an altitude of around 408 to 410 kilometers. However, if its apogee, or maximum altitude, is much higher than its perigee, or lowest altitude, it becomes eccentric, its shape going from a circle to an ellipse. Sputnik 1, the first satellite ever launched, had a very elliptical orbit, with an apogee of 939 kilometers compared to a perigee of only 215 kilometers. This commemorative Russian stamp actually visualizes the orbit very well, showing it far away from the Earth at its apogee and closer at its perigee. So what's the purpose of an elliptical orbit? For this, we'll look at a common Earth orbit called the Molniya orbit, which the Russians invented for effective surveys of high latitudes. It combines a high inclination of 63.4 degrees with a high eccentricity of 0.722 to maximize its viewing time over high latitudes. As it approaches its apogee, it will slow down, spending longer amounts of time over the same area as the Earth rotates beneath it. The lowest to ground layer of Earth's onion of satellite orbits is low Earth orbit, which is used for most scientific satellites. Some specifically used by NASA, like the Earth Observing System, use a polar orbit, moving from the North Pole to the South Pole, taking about 99 minutes to complete an orbit. This allows them to observe almost the entire Earth twice a day, once in the daylight and once in darkness. Polar orbiting satellites can also be used to create what's called a sun-synchronous orbit, in which a satellite can be used to take images with the angle of sunlight being as consistent as possible, despite the changes during the seasons. So, what about space junk? What happens when a satellite goes offline? Well, there's a few different answers. While some space junk remains in common operational orbits, others are moved. Some perform a deorbit burn so that they will return to Earth and burn up in the atmosphere. Others get boosted up into what's called a graveyard orbit, an altitude reserved specifically for satellites that are going offline, keeping them separate from the path of satellites that are still being used. For geostationary satellites, they are boosted up into what's called a supersynchronous orbit above the operational satellites. This is the cheaper solution, as the amount of fuel needed would be much greater to deorbit these higher satellites. However, things like graveyard orbits look to be becoming things of the past. All orbits decay, but high graveyard orbits can take literally millions of years to do so. Considering this, many companies are mandated by the FCC to use what's called disposal orbit for larger satellite networks. This makes use of more satellites at lower altitudes in an orbit designed to eventually decay due to atmospheric drag within 1 year of when they are no longer operational. The last thing we should probably talk about is satellites that orbit bodies aside from the Earth. The most obvious example is, of course, the Moon. The USSR and NASA sent a number of probes to the Moon during the Apollo days, and all of these either impacted the surface or their power sources depleted. To my understanding, many of these should still be in lunar orbit, decaying sometime in the eventual future. Since then, a number of successful and not so successful probes have been sent to the Moon. Very recently, memorable ones include the privately funded Israeli Beresheet lander.
Our main engine. We are resetting the spacecraft to try to enable the engine.
האם יש אישור לשלוח אנלוק וג'יי...
זה הפעלת מנוע ראשי לפי לחצים. מנוע ראשי עובד כרגע לפי לחצים.
מנוע ראשי חזר לעבוד. We have the main engine back on.
No, but it's not... No.
בקרה, מתי, באיזה הערכה, באיזה גובה?
We had a failure in the spacecraft. We unfortunately have not managed to land successfully. We are the 7th country to orbit the moon and the 4th to reach the moon's surface. And it's a tremendous achievement up to now.
And the Indian Space Agency's Chandrayaan-2, both of which impacted the moon after losing contact just above the surface. Many use relatively low and eccentric orbits around the moon, allowing for frequent surveys of different parts of the lunar surface. Due to the moon's tidal locking, it's something of an impossibility to achieve a stationary orbit around the moon. However, spacecraft have still photographed the side of the moon that we can't see from Earth, like the Discover satellite. Good examples of these eccentric orbits can be found with both the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and the Japanese satellite Selene, better known by its nickname Kaguya. Kaguya's apogee was around 231,000 kilometers, while the perigee was down only 281 kilometers above the moon's surface. This allowed it to gather a lot of data about the moon's terrain, and provide mind-blowing views like this.
The blue Earth has appeared from the horizon. This is the Earthrise, as captured by the telephoto camera.
Kaguya orbited the moon for a year and 8 months before eventually being deorbited, impacting the moon near the crater Gill. A similar satellite, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, continues to orbit the moon today. It has a much closer but still eccentric orbit, peaking at 165 kilometers and going down to just 20 kilometers at its lowest. It's been able to take some fantastic photographs, including, you guessed it, photos of the Apollo landing sites. Aren't those beautiful? The LRO has enough fuel currently to keep it operational well into the NASA Artemis program, when it will serve as an important way to survey potential landing sites. Only 2 spacecraft have successfully studied the planet Mercury. This is due to its increased distance, as well as needing to accelerate the spacecraft toward the Sun. Our star's intense gravity causes a need for an extremely high delta V, a change of velocity achieved by burning the fuel, in order to perform what's known as a Hohmann transfer to enter an orbit around Mercury. Nevertheless, Mariner 10 managed to pass by it 3 times in 1973 and 74, taking some pretty stellar photos. Messenger or take a look at this footage. Guess where this is? Antarctica? Siberia? The top of a mountain? One of the frozen moons of Jupiter? No, my friends. That's the surface of a comet, captured by the Rosetta spacecraft. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, which is Dead Kennedy in Space. If you want to support me further, consider donating on Patreon or purchasing some of my work through Amazon or Teespring. Thank you, and I'll see you over the curve, Space Cowboys.
Live there, on the mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam, in a vast cosmic arena.